Howdy, everyone. Welcome to our Stanford GSB session for our 2024 Spotlight. I am so excited to be here and introduce myself. I'm Forrest Spoon. I get the pleasure to present Will over here from the admissions team at GSB. He's super excited to be here with y'all. Uh, this session is going to be very interactive. I know we're going to have a lot of people here today. So Will is going to sort of shoot off a little interactive style, a brief overview, what he's really passionate about, and then from there, we'll probably have a lot of Q&A going on. So be sure use your Q&A tab, guys. Upvote the ones you think are most relevant or you're dying to hear Will answer. And from there, we're just going to appreciate everyone. Use that Q&A once again, upvote the most relevant ones, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. From there, I'd love to turn it over to Will.
Yeah, and then Forrest, would you prefer folks to use the Q&A instead of the chat or in addition to the chat?
We'll use the Q&A for any questions, so that way we can see, what's the most pressing topic. We'll use the chat if you want sort of interactive, so that you can see, answers coming in right away for questions to our audience.
Awesome, thank you. I just wanna make sure that I have my tools, all set up as well. So, welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I'm gonna do something a little different rather than doing a PowerPoint. I figured that I would take a little bit of a, let's work backwards approach. So, I'm gonna ask a question, so it's like a thought exercise. There's gonna be a reflection, there's going to be an affirmation, and then the last thing, a little bit about financial aid. So less so of the kind of uh, not woo woo, but very getting to some of that tactical, practical. And so there's going to be a reason for each. So this is going to be a question that if you've seen my sessions before, I've said, and over time I've come to really believe in it. This is actually going to be the most important question you can ask yourself as you're thinking about the MBA or about business school. And so take a moment, sit back. Um, if you could do anything, what would it be? If you didn't have to worry about salary, you didn't have to worry about whether or not you can get in, you didn't have to worry about how people thought about it. And if you didn't have to worry about whether or not you were actually qualified to do the thing, take a moment and sit with that, right? It might be a job, you might have something very specific in mind. It could also be, maybe it's an impact you wanna make, maybe it's a community you wanna work with, maybe it is kind of a feeling you wanna chase. So I know for some folks, they might not necessarily have the ideas, but they love helping nurture ideas and helping them grow and expand, or it's the ability to help everybody around them realize their full potential. If you could do anything, what would that be? And if you feel comfortable putting that into words, pop that into the chat. Even if it's an imperfect idea, any types of words and descriptions that help you start to figure out who this future version of you is, start putting that in the chat. Um, and so the reason why I ask this is there's actually some really cool research out there about like future selves. And the more that you're able to understand and like figure out who you want to be, right, and have details around that, then you can action plan around those details. So Hamza says, would teach all over the world. Okay, so now let's break that down even further, right? I want to teach global education. And so maybe you're taking people from one part of the world to another. All right, so what would you need to be able to accomplish that? Let's see, Kartik, transforming energy sectors in developing economies. Awesome. Okay, which economies are there? How do you define transforming the energy sector? Are you thinking oil and gas, solar? Are you thinking battery, right? Sustainability. So continue adding more words and descriptions around that. Okay. Now, given each of those things, what are the steps that you're going to need to do to accomplish that? Or what are some things that you think will help you along the way? Okay. And then kind of plugging in the MBA part of it, okay, how will an MBA at Stanford or at any other school, Or even how are opportunities at work going to help you accomplish that? Right. So, really going from this aspirational to, hey, here's an action plan and here's something I can do. Okay. And why do I start here? At Stanford, one of our big philosophies is that, change lives, change organizations, change the world. It's not that you have to want to change the world per se. That's an outcome, right? But it takes actions to do that. So to be able to realize this future you, what are some ways that we can start to put together selections of electives or career advising? How can we maximize even the core curriculum in your first year to help you develop that? And if it's the leadership development curriculum, right? Question, why should someone want to follow you? Being able to put together some of those experiences for you to kind of explore and figure out what that is. You might be surprised that at the GSB in our admissions process, I actually care very little about what you wanna do next. I am not judging what you wanna do, whether or not that job sounds employable. I have no expectation that you have done any prep for this thing, because that's what we're here to help you do, right? So, think big, dream big, get excited, because as you get to, like, kind of go into some of these things that make your eyes light up, research is easier. The conversations you have with students, alumni are going to be easier. Interviews, think of the conversations where you've met somebody and you've just gotten into this very real kind of moment. It's when people care about stuff, right? Or there's this real connection. And so I'd love if you'd be able to start channeling that into this process, because at the GSB, it might not happen right away, but we super believe that if you're willing to put in the work, take advantage of the resources, connect with folks, we're here to help you along that path. So that's kind of one philosophy that I'd love to, like, let's start the day with. Okay. Now, the application process, getting to a little bit more of this tactical, practical. Again, centering you. At Stanford, we practice what's called a holistic review process. So I am taking into account everything that you submit in your application to get a sense of who you are, right? Who's that person that's going to show up in our classroom? And what is that perspective that's going to be adding dimension and nuance in, like, the community, the conversations, kind of getting those synapses kind of sparking with folks all over campus. Okay. And so things like testing, transcripts, letters of recommendation, I'm looking across all of that for kind of every opportunity I can to help elevate you in the process. And notice I say testing transcript. I don't say things like GPA, because GPA is a single data point that only tells me so much. There are different countries that use different grading systems, even individual universities within a country can use very different grading systems. Like, even here in the US, there's 4.0, 5.0 scales. There's also schools that don't have a letter or a number attached to, like, your performance eval, but they have a write-up of every class you took. And I will read those write-ups if that's a school you went to. And so for us, it's about, if past behavior is one of the best indicators for future behavior, what have you done and how? What are your accomplishments and achievements in context? You do not have to. Here's a stereotype. People think that you might need to have to come from startup or entrepreneurship and want to go into it to come to Stanford and thrive. The answer is no. It's more about, like, hey, here's an idea or something that you care about. Okay, now how might we kind of take action towards it, right? Maybe it is entrepreneurship or innovation within existing organizations. Maybe it's a new way for you to tackle a problem that you've been facing every day. Or maybe it's an opportunity that you see is unmet, so you take that step forward to meet it. It's about that spirit of developing that confidence and skill set to do stuff. And that do stuff, that theme is coming up again. So for us, if past behavior is one of the best indicators for future behavior, what have you done and how? So here's the prompt for you. Think about 2, 3 things that you're proud of. What were they? What are the actions you took to make those things happen? What were the circumstances surrounding it? So, like, tell me the story about it, right? And because of this thing that you did, what was then possible? What's the so what? Okay. You're all storytellers. Even in the last 12 hours, last 6 hours, think about how many stories you've told. A lot. So this comes naturally to everybody. Okay. And the next part is understanding your audiences. You might have one story, but the way you tell it to your best friend might look very different from how you tell it to your boss. So now, understanding that the admissions office might be your audience for this, get me back to that storytelling, right? One of the frameworks out there is STAR: situation, task, action, result. Sometimes I'll say stars with the S at the end being the so what of it all, like that reflection of like, okay, what kinds of footprints have you left behind? But those are the types of things that are the most helpful to me on the admission side, right? Who is that person that's going to show up in our classroom and community? Because testing, just one day of your life, not everybody's a great test taker. I'll go to your transcripts. Maybe you were a humanities major. All right, so then I'll go into your work history. Maybe you're telling me about a time when, and remember, tell me about a time when, get me to some of those actions, behavior, storytelling, where you've worked with data, you've worked with numbers, right? Great. Those are skill sets that are then translatable into the classroom and into the community. And so that's where the power of the holistic review process comes into play. And thinking about your application as an exercise in storytelling, it's going to be an imperfect story because nobody can capture everything about who they are, and that's okay. And I will say the additional information section at the end, if there's anything that doesn't fit somewhere else, like maybe you were ill or you were supporting other family members, so it impacted your ability to take finals, for example, let me know in the additional information section. I will always, always, always read that before, as I'm kind of understanding your file as a whole. And then maybe the additional addendum to that is if it's important to you, it's important to us. So make sure it's in there somewhere. I actually care less about is it an internship? Is it extracurricular? Is it full-time work experience? As long as it's in there, again, because of this holistic review process, as long as it's in there, I can then take it into account, right? So if it's important to you, it's important to us. Okay, so far, if you could do anything, what would it be? What are some of the things that you would need to get there and secret as you start exploring that? And whether it's info sessions, whatever, you've already written one of your Stanford essays. The next is what are some things you're proud of? What did you do? What were some of the actions? Now, the affirmation. And so it feels very like me centric, which if you were raised anything like me, like nobody ever asked me like and not in a real way. They were like, "What is it you want to be?" But when my parents asked me, the answer was always either doctor, lawyer, engineer, and I was like, "Ugh." And this is a case where I actually do want to know what it is, and that can feel like a vulnerable experience. And so I encourage you to take this as an opportunity. Know that this is a safe place in the application. Nobody is seeing this except you, me, and anybody you decide to share essays or writing with. Okay. I am not judging. I am not saying this is a good or bad essay or any piece of writing, but what am I able to learn about you? And so the affirmation comes in. It might be uncomfortable centering yourself or saying, here's what I did, whether that is a cultural element, something, how you grew up, or just you as an individual. And so I want to just say that even in a group exercise, totally okay to honor the group. And also, you did something within the context of that group, and it's okay. And um, because you, again, are the center of this whole experience, this is your MBA towards your goals. And this is the first step towards kind of exercising that and figuring out, okay, what is it that I want? And then, kind of, the reality of not just Stanford, but many business schools and even the workplace. Uh, I have a feeling many people on this call might be the cornerstones of family, community, friends that people rely on you. And it might feel like a strange or uncomfortable experience saying, hey, I need help or support, or here's what I need, even. And this is one way to start exploring what does that mean for you, right? Here's what I need to get to this future version of me. Now when you're on campuses, oh, here's some experiences that maybe I want to take advantage of, or here's a class that I'm struggling in. What is the support I need? And there it is. So being able to build some of that system of support starts with identifying what you need, and that starts with the I. So this is a kind of ongoing practice. So I want to affirm that it might feel uncomfortable, And I will never say, "Oh, you're bragging," or whatever. Like, I literally am asking about you. So, show up and speak your truth in a way that feels comfortable for you. Okay, so that's if you could do anything, what would it be and why? What are some things that you're proud of, knowing that those actions in one part of your world translatable across so many other places? The affirmation that this might feel uncomfortable, um, and I would love to get to know more about you. When I'm reading your application, you're the most interesting person in the world to me. And you'll notice that even when I do interviews, one of my most common kind of follow ups is, "Ooh, tell me more," right? Giving you the open space to go into the areas that you feel are most important to you, and I'll guide you. So the questions in the application are intended to also guide you. So for the ones, tell me about a time when, clearly some storytelling. What matters most to you and why might feel kind of tricky because it's such a quote unquote simple question. But honestly, for you, what matters the most and why? It's not that here's what matters to me and here's evidence or here's experiences, but really take a moment to reflect on that. It's a rare opportunity. And if you think about, again, that leadership development curriculum, it helps inform how you show up in a place. What are some of the things that shape your perspective? And then as you start to have some of this internal dialogue, it helps you understand how you interact with the world around you. And now if you think forward into the business space, how does that impact the way you communicate? Or if there's interpersonal conflict, how might you then understand, oh, this is why I was feeling that way? All right, let's figure out ways to action plan so that we might be able to have some kind of broader resolution in the future, right? So already in this application, it's a chance to envision the future you and start skill building towards the leader that you can be. All right. Last thing on financial aid. So Stanford practices a need-based financial aid process, which means I'm taking into account things like prior income, assets, currency valuation, knowing that what a living wage in one part of the world, once you do the conversions, it'll look very different elsewhere, and we honor and acknowledge that. It does not matter when you apply to the GSB, round one, round two, round three, you're admitted off the wait list. If you have demonstrated need, we will meet it. And so financial aid kicks off after you're admitted. We'll celebrate together. In your online portal, there will be a space that says, "Hey, interested in applying for financial aid? Here's how." And you will get your financial aid package before you need to decide whether or not you want to come to Stanford, because there might be other circumstances, situations out there that might not be captured there. Um, our financial aid team is here to support you. And that's one of the beauties about the class size at Stanford as well. They're able to have these conversations and they really want to be able to talk through, okay, there's a medical expense. Okay, what are some of these documentation pieces so that we're able to get you that support under the law and auspices? Or I was talking to one of our students yesterday who is from a country that has bank sanctions. Okay, knowing that, we do actually have resources to be able to provide either loans or support to kind of navigate that. So you don't have to worry about some of these kind of broader socio-political challenges, but really let us help you through the process. So just really thinking through that, we're here for you. And I saw a question earlier right at the top about fee waivers, or I think it might have said test waivers. And so you do have to take a test. Unfortunately, we don't have a test waiver, but there is a need-based application fee waiver. If you go to our website, you can learn more about that. You just email us inquiring. There's some eligibility requirements, but it's something that you can definitely take advantage of. And I'm gonna shift gears. Give me one moment. My eyes are gonna like look off to my other monitor because there's something I want to share in the chat box before we turn it over to you all, because I want to make sure that um, I've just been kind of talking. I don't actually know if what I've been saying is helpful or answers any of your questions, and I want to make sure that we're able to tackle some of that. But what I'm gonna do first is, here we go. I'm gonna pop a few links into the chat box. So I gave a few high level kind of philosophies, thought exercises, things that you might be able to incorporate in your application kind of journey or thought journey. Um, but maybe you want to revisit them. I actually go into it in much more depth in a series of workshops I created because doing this work, I realized like it is very different than when you are applying to undergrad. And it's also even further of an experience if you were from a country where it's more test based or just the academic journey up to this point is very different. And so I created these application workshops to help you get into our head as an admissions office. Also, some skill building exercises and some more reflection things, knowing that for some people, this is the first time that you might be doing this. And then the next one, it's two things about the letters of recommendation. Um, One is for you all as potential applicants. And so, what is the letter of recommendation? How do we use it? Who are folks that you might want to ask or consider? Or what are some things that to think about as you're figuring out who you want to write a recommendation? And the second one is um, because I actually have a bone to pick. There's like one piece of advice out there that I really hate. Not hate is a hard word. That I'm like, ooh, it's that you should have a conversation with the people you want to write your letters of recommendation. Here's what I've done, remind them of accomplishments. Um, I never had a relationship, and you can already tell I feel very strongly about this. Like I would feel so uncomfortable going to anybody that I in a senior position or more experienced to ask, "You're already doing me a favor. I feel weird telling you what to write about." And so rather than putting the onus on you, that App Week LORs for recommenders, it's a shorter video that kind of captures how we think about the letters of recommendation, what are details that are helpful to me in the admissions process, and some tips for the recommenders. So instead of you having to sit down with people, you can just share that. So then hopefully it empowers them to like provide their kind of honest championing of you because these are people who want you to succeed. And hopefully these are tools that allow them to do that in a way that, in the application, we want you to tell your fullest story. In the letter of recommendation, I want to empower your recommenders to also champion and advocate for you in the fullest sense of the word. So hopefully those are some resources that are going to be available to you that might come in helpful over the process. And so with that, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to hand over the reins to Forrest. And how can I help?
Excellent. No, I appreciate you very much, Will. I think I speak for a decent amount of people I saw jumping in the chat that this is exactly what they needed at the end of a long spotlight day. Just,
Yeah.
having that real human conversation and that connection. And I think you did a phenomenal job doing it. So, first and foremost, thank you very much, I think is what's well deserved from our audience today. And I think one of the top questions that I was looking at that I thought was interesting was um, kind of, I guess, the entrepreneurial environment of Stanford.
Mhm.
That's a big thing. I think that's what Stanford's sort of cornerstone has always been in my mind. And it's on the top of mind for a lot of people here in our chat. What's kind of
Mhm.
the resources? What do you look for in sort of GSB students becoming entrepreneurs or who are entrepreneurs entering the scene? And how do you support that environment?
Ooh, so really interesting because I'm going to answer this in two sections. One is what we're looking for, and one is like how to engage with it once you're on campus. So, what we're looking for folks from entrepreneurial backgrounds, same thing that we're looking for in everybody, right? So, what have you done and how? What are some of these footprints you've left behind? You do not have to have come from again an entrepreneurial background to be admitted to Stanford versus any other kind of experience set. Same thing for college. Like we have no preference. Rather, I want to know how you've done wherever you've been. So that's the one thing. Tell your story. Now, once you're at Stanford, even I know a lot of people who are like, I want to be a consultant, and I want to have like, how does that mind work, right? Like, how do we go from here's an issue, opportunity, challenge, take that design thinking approach, that human centered design. How do we think about the final user to like problem solve? And so it's more about that than it is about entrepreneurship per se. Also, don't feel like you have to have an idea. You might want to go into entrepreneurship, but it's going to take a while to develop that. Totally okay, right? Some of the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones 5, 10, 15 years out once they have even more subject matter expertise in the field that they want. So that's all a kind of affirmation. It doesn't have to be perfect. There doesn't have to be a fully fleshed out idea. If you have a direction you want to explore in, all the better, right? Okay, so there's a Center for Entrepreneurial Studies. I'm just grabbing the links in case it's helpful. And so they help facilitate all kinds of experiences at the GSB. There's over 50 classes with some dimension of entrepreneurship. So I'm putting the link into the chat box and not the Q&A. There are from those classes, whether it's folks who are entrepreneurs coming in, maybe there's ones where you're the one actually practice pitching to venture capitalists and investors. And really thinking about, yes, there are structures, there are mentorship opportunities embedded there, there's a student organizations, there's our, I actually think the most powerful thing at the GSB that um, enables this entrepreneurial spirit is like, you care about something. Everybody's curious about what everybody cares about and wants to learn more. And it's like, oh, have you talked to? And because of the class size, folks are able to connect each other, ideas, connect with people all across campus because maybe you have an idea, but you don't have the technical background, maybe the programming to necessarily make it happen. A, there's people with programming expertise in your class, but B, you have Stanford University, right? Like on like here. So being able to leverage the skill sets, knowing that you're going to be able to contribute a unique perspective and skill set as well, beautiful, right? And then through there, there's this belief that yes, the thing you care about is important, I can do something about it. And here are folks knowing that you're going to need different things along the way who can help you on that journey and you're not on it alone. I think it's as much of a mental and kind of belief state as it is here's an accelerator, here's a class, here's a thing. Those are all just tools along the way that actually build kind of the you behind it all. So kind of a woo-woo answer, but there's a ton of actual technical experiences, including the opportunity to get funded to work on your idea and continue exploring it in the summer between your MBA 1 and MBA 2 year instead of doing a quote unquote traditional internship. Lots of opportunities.
Fantastic. I love that answer, Will. I've gotten to work with a couple alumni and co-founders who started a business together because of their experience at GSB. And I think the one thing that really united them was what they really cared about, and they
Mhm.
found each other to support those technical needs that they didn't have.
Yeah. It makes me think of there's 2 students who, coming into the GSB, uh, either wanted to do something in a completely different field, but they both had they cared about what was happening to our aging population, and so they ended up kind of brainstorming and exploring what, there's a geriatric care kind of opportunity that they wanted to launch, and so right? I'm never gonna hold you to what you say in your application because you're probably gonna discover something, feel empowered, pivot at sometime at the GSB. As long as it feels real to you as you're applying, that's the key. But once you're here, it's a playground.
Yes. Awesome. And I'd love to learn more about that, sort of building on the question in the chat. I think we've sort of answered it's a lot about care and your why. If How would you describe their personality and character, and why is it Will? I feel like we're all feeling that in the chat, that you've done such a great job of communicating the care, not only that you have for GSB, but also for us, potential candidates.
Yeah, I would say it care and curiosity, right? Continuing to explore the thing that you're interested in because that's always evolving. Curiosity in the classroom, in the community. I will also say, don't forget that again, this might be a completely unrelated hot tip, but but the thing that alumni always tell me is like they wish they connected more with faculty while they were there. And so even that curiosity to bridge like these different understandings of who quote unquote community could be and, I find this especially for folks who are like, "I thought faculty there were just, gonna talk at me, I memorize things, and I spit it back out on a test." But rather here, they're area experts. They're there to be able to connect and support you. And so there's even that curiosity about everybody and not just kind of the quote the titles or roles that people hold, but our ability to kind of support and encourage each other's curiosity. I think there's that element as well.
Fantastic. And I think a common question that has been coming up in the chat is sort of the diverse backgrounds that people really come from and
Mm,
get really passionate about going to GSB. It seems like there's been that nice network that has merged together those different technical skills and
yeah.
passions to bring people here. As on the admissions team, how do you kind of, I guess, dissect those different areas and how do you examine them separately and then together for who you decide ultimately?
Yeah, yeah, I've never so there's no quotas, no benchmarks, no minimums. Honestly, okay, so another thought exercise maybe to put yourself in the situation. Think
Mm,
about okay, maybe there are 5 consultants, for example, but okay, what kind of consulting do you do? There might be a couple people in big firms, there might be a couple people in smaller boutique firms, there might be someone doing consulting as a freelancing. All right, already getting to another a separate dimension. All right, what's your field? Someone might be doing energy transformation, someone might be nonprofit education, kind of consulting. All right, how did you get there? Even if there are two people doing M&A, like mergers and acquisitions consulting, one person might have been the first in their family to go to college, navigated this, and was able to carve out a situation, whereas someone might have found it purely by luck because they had an internship that was recommended to them and they did it over right. So the further you go into your journey and being able to understand like who are you, right? How are those experiences shaping who you are? Everybody is fundamentally different, and so it's almost like how do we deconstruct some of these and then rebuild it so that as you're understanding and moving through these different spaces, you can have these conversations with each other. Um, Dean Levin, so hard to call him President Levin of the Stanford. So he was our dean at the time, but he said education is fundamentally about encountering and engaging with difference, right? Whether it's a worldview, whether it's a new math problem, right? These are the things that expand how you kind of perceive the world. Um, and that can happen in so many dimensions. So you all are more than any single checkbox or series of categories. If anything, flip that around, right? Given these things that you identify as or lived experiences, how does that shape who you are? How does that shape the perspective and the way you approach the world? Now, tell me about a time when that happened, right? Draw these lines back and forth to help understand some of these deeper connections. And I think it gets beyond just the kind of superficial definition of diversity to that really deep understanding of like who we are as complex human beings. And sorry, I just went really long with that. And this is stuff I really care about. And so I go off the deep end sometimes. Sorry.
No, no, we all appreciate the passion on full display, Will. So I appreciate you diving in and just at least giving us a sneak peek. Um, I feel like this question in the chat comes with a bit of anxiety.
Okay.
A round one applicant hoping for an interview, wondering if there's an official deadline or a date for the cutoff. Is there a timeline that's provided by the admissions team
There
for
should have
when a
been an
decision?
approximate window shared with you in the your email after you click submit. I can, and we are still issuing invitations. So just wanted to let that out there now. So we're still in process.
Mhm.
And I
Excellent.
also want to apologize. I recognize the stress of the waiting, but it's just kind of embedded in our process that we literally are reading every application. So I'm not able to issue like bulk invitations because we haven't gotten to that applicant just yet. Because again, there's no way to shortlist you without understanding the fullness an of your application. Because again, you're so much more than any single number or category.
Mhm. Appreciate that. It's very comforting to hear that direct sort of a holistic perspective that you're trying to sort of foster and even just the candidates who come to you guys. I guess going forward from that point, I was looking at a question that I thought was interesting that I've sort of been dissecting with a couple different admissions
Mhm.
teams. We've seen a large increase in our GMAT club's membership, as well as registrations for GMATs and GREs, probably leading to a lot more applications on your side. Has there been any changes in kind of the process behind GSB's reviews and admission process to sort of accommodate for all these new applicants I assume are coming in?
Interesting. So if you think about some of the philosophies, even that I've mentioned today, like what have you done and how, excellence and achievement in context. If past behavior is one of the indicators for future behavior, again, what have you done and how? All of those are kind of industry background agnostic, but they are context informed. And so I think even those two kind of philosophies allows us to apply the same types of rubrics, understandings of these behavioral elements, no matter kind of applicant volume, size scale, whatever, and which is really nice. And if application volume goes up, that doesn't change the way that we're reviewing. If anything, I just work more weekends. But this is like reading applications is my favorite part of the job. So I will happily work weekends to be able to make sure like everybody gets the fair, equitable read because you all are investing so much into this and taking that time to be vulnerable. Everybody on my team wants to make sure that we're honoring and paying that respect back.
Fantastic. I think you touched on a good point there that I've gotten to speak with other deans of admissions or directors of admissions. There's a lot of applications to read, but a little bit more relax and decompress from reading all this because I imagine it's a lot of stress reading through all these people, meeting all these great people, getting excited about them, and then having to go to a decision. What's your way to de-stress from this?
Yeah, this might sound strange, but it's less stressful and more humbling. Right? Because in sharing what you care about, there are these glimmers of hope for okay, and this is gonna again sound very woo-woo, but in seeing how A, you've already been able to improve and kind of make life better for those around you, big, small, whatever, adjectives independent, and then the things that you wanna do in the future and what's important to you. I think those are really powerful motivating forces. So it's more humbling than anything. Um, and then the nerd in me, I de-stress by learning more about admissions and like, okay, how can I make this better for you? Or what is a workshop that I can create? Because I also care about the education opportunity in these interactions. So that's something that helps me de-stress. If I can help you get in somewhere, if I can help you develop a skill that'll help you in the application search, in the job search, beyond just getting admitted to Stanford, I think we're better able to like leverage the resource and do good kind of at a larger scale. So, what you need, let me know. I'm always happy to create more workshops to support you.
Excellent. No, I love to hear that. And we're coming down to our final 4 minutes. So I'd like to leave it with sort of a future question. So when you started with Stanford,
Mhm.
what was the thing that got you most excited about your work? What are you most excited going forward in terms of growth that you've seen at GSB?
I you were getting in with these questions, huh? Oh, you know what? The thing that inspired me the most is the opportunity for structural change, as weird as that sounds, because there are all kinds of change that happens, right? There are people who are activists on the front lines. We need those people. We also need people who are within the systems and structures who understand how it works so that even as we're dismantling or taking things down, we can still rebuild them to be more equitable and provide more access, right? And so this was my way of opening avenues of access to people to higher education, to places like Stanford, because I grew up in a spot where like Stanford was never perceived as a place for quote unquote us. And so to be able to do some of this work on the inside has been super inspiring and helping support people's dreams. So I think there's that element that A, it keeps me connected to this work, but also B is a lot of hope for the future, right? Even in these small transformations of creating the skill building workshops, for example, versus just, hey, you're interested in Stanford, here's the parts of the application. We can't wait to see your application. That doesn't really help, right? But even in these small moments, what are ways that we can continue to empowering and elevating people's hopes and dreams? I think Stanford has a unique platform and one that we continue to figure out how to leverage so that we can continue benefiting more people.
Fantastic, Will. I think that's a great way to leave it. We have a final sort of minute and a half here. I'd love to leave you with any last remarks, last comments that you think you'd like to add on. I'd also like to thank you so much for your time, the wisdom you've gotten to share, and thank our attendees. And I'll let Will, if you have any closing remarks that you'd like to leave us with.
Yeah, it might sound really ironic given that we're at an MBA Spotlight fair and it's about building community. So yes, community is important, right? What so I part of my research, I'm working on another degree, so whatever. But part of my research is on the application experience. One of the most powerful tools and supporting folks has been having other people who get it, because you might be the only one in your world who kind of has an understanding of what an MBA might be or why you want to do it. And that can be hard. If there are other people in your life, maybe there's other folks here on in this event that you find resonance with as you're networking, people at work, having those kind of support systems incredibly powerful. And at some point, getting feedback, there's only so much feedback that you can take, right? End of the day, you are the agent and owner of your journey. If you feel like the application is a good reflection of you or even a part of you, again, it's never going to be, you never can write everything about yourself. But if you feel like the application is a good reflection of you, your actions, behaviors, and what shapes you, you did the right thing, right? At some point, it's not about comparing yourself to other people, not about comparing yourself to class averages or class profiles, because I had another bone to pick about those, but that's a story for another day. Because I am not comparing you to those. So I hope you are not comparing yourself to those either, right? Help me understand your life, um, and take pride because you've all done really incredible things and you've made the world better for those around you. And I hope you're also able to appreciate that and use that as continued motivation for the future.
Fantastic note to end it on. Thank you so much, Will. Thank you, everyone, coming out to our 2024 Spotlight. We're having booths open in 15 minutes. So if you have more burning questions, please find your schools out there. And once again, thank you very much, Will.
All right, take care, everybody. Best of luck.